The last Concordia. Sinn Féin is very critical of the democratic deficit at the heart of the European Union and of our government's compliant attitude to the EU elites. And we've long argued for a social Europe based on equality and the rights of all EU citizens. But today I want to concentrate my remarks on one of a range of challenges facing the EU. And that is, if British Prime Minister David Cameron wins tomorrow's British general election, he has pledged that by 2017 he will hold a referendum on Britain's membership of the EU. Now, this is a paranoid political reaction to the perceived electoral threat of the Eurosceptic UKIP. But it's also further evidence that the political considerations of British political parties are primarily about England and English issues. And the stark reality of any EU referendum is that it could take the north of Ireland, out of the European Union. And the referendum will allow the views of English voters to dictate the future relationships of the north, and therefore of this island, with the European Union. It also further underlines the folly of DUP and UUP support for the Tories. It is selfish, insular politics in action, with implications for Ireland as a whole. Minister, it would reinforce the partition of this island. Partition of this island is illegitimate, it's immoral, it's an intrusion in our affairs, and it's economically disruptive. But if Mr Cameron is re-elected and has his way, then this disruptive border would be reinforced by an international frontier staffed by passport checkpoints and customs controls. And all of the work in recent years of cross-border cooperation and work with everyone across the island to our mutual advantage would be set to naught. And I think it further, this notion highlights the fact that the real threat to the economy in the north comes from Britain, and the real threat to the island economy comes from partition. An EU exit of a part of this island will hinder free movement and severely disrupt the day-to-day lives of people, particularly people living in the border counties, and that's on both sides of the border. Irish workers, farmers, local enterprises already pay and will continue to pay the human, social and economic price of partition. There will be no single farm payment or rural development fund, no structural funds, no peace funding. There are almost 1 million citizens living in Irish border counties who, on a day-to-day basis, pay the price for all of this. They pay it through roaming charges, the cost of using two currencies and additional bank charges. They pay it through barriers to accessing the nearest public services, particularly health services, social housing and education. It is these people who will face increased challenges that are not of their choice. And of course, partition heralded ongoing violence in every decade since it was imposed upon our people. Island-wide trade, which currently generates £3 billion sterling, will be severely disruptive. So the Tory proposal for a referendum without a separate binding vote in the north denies people in the north the power to make decisions about our own lives. It is the people of this island who should decide the economic, social and political future of Ireland. And that includes the right to a separate and binding referendum in the north on European Union membership. And this is something I'm sure the government, the Taoiseach, has spoken about this issue on a number of occasions in Britain itself and most recently in Belfast. So this is something I would ask the government to direct its attitude and its mind to. And it may be that some unionists may support David Cameron's proposition, but the fact is the economies of Ireland, north and south, are interlinked and interdependent. And many ordinary unionists who I met, particularly from rural 6 counties and from the farming community, are very conscious of the interdependency and interlinking of an island economy. So it's time to build and to strengthen this economy, not to split it up or to divide it. And it goes without saying that working together our economic output would be stronger. Splintering merely weakens the economy, undermines public services and undermines the spirit of citizens. So while Sinn Féin is critical of the EU's democratic deficit, as I have said, the EU does have the potential to provide a bridge towards the greater integration of Ireland, North and South, towards a single economic and political unit. And it is the responsibility of our government to actively promote and pursue this objective. Indeed, there is a constitutional imperative for the government to do so. And it's past time that the European Parliament dealt with Ireland as one, not two systems. The potential for the North to positively reshape our relationship with the EU in the context of a limited and narrow British vote on EU membership should not be overlooked. Parties with no democratic mandate in any part of this island cannot be allowed by the government the power to dictate the political or economic future of this country. Political and economic decision-making powers must be increasingly transferred from London to Belfast, and as I've said earlier, all citizens in the North should have the right to express their will through a separate legally binding vote on EU membership. And that's the only position which makes any sense whatsoever. It is a position which the Taoiseach needs to support, and if in the future, and we know this within coming days or weeks, a referendum is to be organised by an incoming British government, then the Taoiseach needs to assertively pursue with his British counterpart the need and the right of a separate and legally binding referendum for citizens in the north of Ireland on this issue. And I would therefore call upon the Taoiseach to look for an urgent meeting with the new British government to pursue this matter.
Thank you very much, Eoraip, for an opportunity just to say a few words on this, because an awful lot, I'm sure, has already been mentioned. And I suppose the topic is challenges faced